Hello and welcome to the Appeon 2016 product installation for Appeon Web or Appeon Mobile or both, known as Appeon Universal. Before you install the Appeon product suite, we're assuming that the developer installation or environment configuration has been complete. If not, please visit the Prerequisites video tutorial for more detailed information on how to get your environment ready. In this particular video, we've already got Windows ready to go. I'm using Windows 10 64-bit. I have PowerBuilder 12.6 installed, SQL Anywhere version 12 installed, both the 32-bit and 64-bit businesses. The .NET Framework 4.6 has been installed and configured, and the Internet Information Server has been installed and configured. In this video, of course, we're focused on the Appeon for PowerBuilder 2016 product installation. It's going to install four major components. The first one, of course, being the Appeon developer, which sits in the PowerBuilder Classic IDE. We'll install a secondary toolbar that will allow you to integrate directly and interact directly with the Appeon developer component. The next piece is the Appeon integrated help. This is a great detailed piece of information about the Appeon Web and Appeon Mobile installation, configuration, development, and deployment. I would strongly recommend that you install that. The next one is an optional piece, which is the Appeon examples. Again, I would strongly urge you to install the examples because it's a great way to learn from how to build Appeon web or mobile applications from the example. And it's also a great way to do a sanity test once you've completed the Appeon for PowerBuilder installation. The last of the four components, of course, is the Appeon server, which will sit inside the IIS application web server. The Appeon server is really a helper. It has all sorts of helpers, such as for data windows, non-visual object, web services, security, and many other subcomponents that will help you in your journey from developing, testing, and on to deployment. So let's actually run a real installation. The steps are to download the install, unzip it, receive a product key, unless of course you're running the trial key, which will probably be embedded in the installation and give you 30 days of using the product without requiring a full product key. The next thing then will actually be to run the setup.exe. So let's have a look here. If I open up my file explorer, you can see at this point that I've already downloaded the zip file and I've already extracted the installation here into a folder and ready to go. I've also received a product key. So if we go to the install folder, we can see the setup.exe. We can execute that and bring up the actual Appeon for PowerBuilder installation dialog. In this particular dialog that you can see here before we run the install, that you may want to actually go and view the README. The README may have some key information as to what to do or changes, depending on whether you're doing an upgrade or you're doing a brand new installation. So I'd encourage you to do the README first and see if there's anything relevant information to your environment. You can also do a quick check of the product manuals. You can do some training, and then you can also visit the Appeon website for other key information around the product suite. I'm assuming at this point that you've done the README, and what we really want to do is run the install itself. So starting the installation, we're going to see that the install wizard will come up. It'll have to ask you some questions about those four major components. So we're going to walk you through what's probably going to be displayed on your screen and answer the appropriate questions to get the entire four components installed. The first thing is here that we're actually installing the developer version. That is going to be the universal one. In your case, however, it may be different depending on the product key that you get. So I'm going to actually type in the product key here. You'll notice that I get a green check mark that says that this product key is okay. Nothing changes to the product type, so this is truly a key that matches the Appeon Universal. And then select Next. Now you can see here we're going to install the Appeon server for .NET because we're doing the .NET flavor of Appeon. There is a J2EE version as well. And if you get the full installation for the Java world, you'll see that there'll be Appeon server installs for various types of J2EE service as well. We're not going to do that here because we're focused on .NET. And again, you can see the developer and the help is going to be installed. And again, I'd strongly recommend that you leave the help there because that is a great integrated help system that's full of all sorts of information useful for the application developer. You don't need the Appeon server web component. This piece is only used in the enterprise version of Appeon server, where you're going to do things such as failover and load balancing. So in a developer environment, that wouldn't be applicable. So just leave the first 3 checkboxes active and select Next. So here you can see we start the actual installation itself. And that with the server, it's also going to ask that should I create a new website underneath IIS. The default, of course, is the C drive, inet pub, www root. I would recommend that you just leave the default website as the first checkbox and then continue on to next. Here's where you have the option to install the demo applications. I'd strongly advise you to just leave the default checked, and that way again you can use those to do a sanity check when you've done this primary installation. Here's where it's going to ask you about the SQL Anywhere. I've configured that version 12 in both 64 and 32-bit, so I'll just choose that. The next thing is the Appeon Enterprise Manager, and that's going to be a major control application allowing you to talk directly to the server and find out what's going on. I'd strongly suggest that you leave the username default admin. The password is going to be admin. You can always change that later on after the installation. Select Next. The next is .NET settings as far as threads, number of free threads, worker threads, timeout, and all these settings here are the default. For this point in time, I strongly suggest you to just leave those the way they are. You can always change it after the installation has been complete and you've had a chance to run the system a little while to see if you need to tweak these. So select Next. This just confirms the settings that you chose. Select Next. And you can see here that it's going to start the installation. Take a note at some of the new things that are supported in Appeon 2016, such as the ink picture control, a great control in the native Power Builder world. It's wonderful for displaying all sorts of different types of images, JPEGs, bitmaps, PNG files. So this ink control is now supported. Also, you can see your Android mobile applications that the printing is now supported. Apache Cordova plugins are supported for the mobile world. There's been more APIs added to the Appeon base installation for helping you with imaging and keyboard handling. The data dynamic sources have been added as well, so you can do some dynamic SQL. OLE storage objects support has been added in the web world. DB2 support has been added. Support in the Java world for Wildfly and JBoss, new versions. Support for secure connection to IIS and Apache. And of course, support for web applications running in the Microsoft Edge browser. This is important to note that Appeon 2016 runs on multiple web browsers. So not only the Edge and the Internet Explorer, you can also have Chrome, for example, and Firefox or Opera. There's just some other examples. So in this case, you can see that we've completed the server install, and now the installation is getting ready to install the Appeon developer plugin. This will take a few seconds. It's just before it does that, of course, it's going to confirm that this is where you would like the developer install. It's going to put it in the 32-bit program files x86, create a new folder, Appeon, subfolder, developer 16. I'm just going to select the defaults. It automatically will show you what versions of Power Builder you have installed on your machine. You can just let it default, which will be all of them, or you can specify, for example, that only version Power Builder 12.6 should have the Appeon extra toolbar IDE added. In my case, I'm still using all 3 versions, so I'm just going to let it default. Select Next. As far as communicating to the IIS world, we're going to use the local host and the default number port 80. That's the default for the IIS.net installation. That unless you've actually changed that to a different default, I'd leave this the same. Now it's going to confirm the 32-bit engine, that because this is what the PowerBuilder IDE will talk to, because the IDE itself from PowerBuilder is only 32-bit. So here again I select SQL Anywhere version 12. That just confirms it, and away it goes. It's going to complete that. You can see here it's going to install the Appeon developer inside the IDE. It's going to make sure that your workspace support is there inside of PowerBuilder and hook all the necessary pieces up to the IDE. As you can see, we're almost complete now. But the Appeon Developer 2016 adds some really cool features such as installable web applications. It allows you to install your applications directly to the desktop. Improvements to the installation of Appeon Workspace on mobile devices, and also while you're doing upgrades or deployments to Appeon Workspace and standalone applications. This part of the install probably took a little while, because there's a lot of things being hooked into various components of the PowerBuilder IDE. The example applications also take a little while to set up, as far as the PowerBuilder libraries and hooking up workspaces and targets that you can run automatically from your PowerBuilder 12.6 IDE. As you can see now, we're on the fourth component, which is the Appeon server, Appeon help. Again, we're just confirming that this is where you want the help installed. The help is going to be called from the PowerBuilder IDE. So you can see again, this is going to be installed under Program Files x86. Select Next. At the end of the Appeon 2016 Product Suite installation, everything's ready to go. All four of the major component subcategories have been completed and installed. So it's just going to ask you, would you like to restart IIS, make sure everything is reset and up and ready, and it's going to make sure that the framework is registered to IIS. Leave those checked and select Finish. This is going to open up the DOS command window. You may also see an additional README pop up at this point in time. This is for if you're installing under Windows Server 2008 R2. There may be some additional steps that you need to do in order to complete that particular installation. And you can read that at your leisure if that applies to you. At this point, we've completed the install and we're ready to basically do a sanity test. So I'm going to close the install dialog here and move on to the sanity testing. One of the first things you want to do is make sure that the Appeon Enterprise Manager, or AEM as we call it, is available and that it's the Appeon server is listening. In order to do this, you can start your favorite web browser. In this case, I'm just using Microsoft Edge. For the URL will be / localhost /AEM. At this point, you can see that we have a response from IIS and the Appeon Server Enterprise Manager. At this time, we can type in the secret user ID admin and, of course, the secret password admin, and which again can be changed later on, and select Login. At this point, you should see the main console appear. This allows you to communicate to the Appeon server running inside of IIS. Everything looks good at this point, and we'll cover in detail the Appeon Enterprise Manager and how to use it in following tutorials. For right now, I'm just going to log out because this part of the sanity check is complete. Now what we have to do is make sure that your application demonstration from Appeon works. This particular application is called the sales application. You should be able to find that by going to All Applications. Having looked that Appeon has been installed for PowerBuilder, you can see this is a new. This looks good. And there's a workspace, Appeon Demo PB Workspace. If you select that, it should start the PowerBuilder IDE. That's just confirming it's going to run it in admin mode. because I've set that for the default here on my Windows 10 installation. You can see the sales application demo is here, and of course we can hit our trusty blue jogger to run the sales demo application. And there's the actual screen. That username administrator and the password has been defaulted for us. We can just select login, and we see now the main navigation screen, the toolbar, and the pull-down menus. This looks good. You can go ahead and play with this. You can run the reports, you can run the update screens, and basically check out all the functionality. But the fact that we've been able to at least run one screen and draw some data from SQL Anywhere, we know SQL Anywhere is configured properly for the 32-bit world, and we know the test database has also been installed and is interacting properly with this demo application. So I'm just going to exit this point. And I'm going to close Power Builder. And that looks good. What we also like to sanity test is the web and mobile world. So I'm not going to go around the details of how to do this. I'm going to quickly show you how to configure that for deployment so that you can make sure that it works. So bringing back the Power Builder environment, I'm just going to point to the fact that the second icon in this toolbar you see here below the main toolbar now is the Appeon toolbar. We're going to go to Configure. We see the sales application is here. It's a universal, which means we can test both the web and the mobile. I'm just going to hit OK here. And then we're going to hit the deploy. It's going to deploy the sales application. I don't need to generate a unsupported feature analysis report. Again, once we cover the deployment wizard and the application development environment within the Appeon realm, we'll cover this in more detail. But for now, just select unattended deployment and deselect generate unsupported features and select next. So what's going to happen now is we're actually dealing with the Appeon developer system, and it's reading your Power Builder libraries and deploying the code to the Appeon server. This may take a few seconds. At the end here, you can see that we've now completed everything. It's done 3 steps. They both completed successfully. There are no errors and no warnings. So now you notice here that we can actually choose the run, and we can run within the, for example, Internet Explorer web browser. So let's choose that first, because we want to make sure that the Appeon web side of the house is working properly. So you can see what it's going to do now is communicate to localhost and then run the sales application. And there we go. There's the sales application. We select login. Running inside the browser now, we see the pull-down menu help. We see the toolbar with the floating bubble help. And for example, we can run the customer report. And we do get data. Now we're running in a 64-bit application with that. So we have to remember that we're pulling data here from the 64-bit version of SQL Anywhere and the test database that was also designed for 64-bit. So that worked out fine. Again, at your own time and leisure, you can play with the different panels within that particular application and test it out to make sure that further updates and deletes and inserts are working properly. But it should work exactly the same as you ran it here from the Power Builder IDE. For the last test, I'm going to choose Run. Or I can choose the drop-down and say, run that on the emulator. Because you may not have a mobile device at this point to test Appeon Mobile. So Power Builder and the Appeon development environment, Appeon 2016, provides an emulator for you to test that. I'm going to test it out as if I'm actually running on a tablet. You see the emulator will come up. Here you can actually see the actual screen, Appeon Workspace Emulator. And that we see the login. And here we see the welcome screen. You'll notice here that it's a little bit different in the mobile world. That menus are available here from the top left icon. For example, File, Order, Change Password, Exit, etc. The toolbar is available from here. So the functionality is the same, just in a little bit different location. But we can also deal with the same customer report And again, data is flowing properly here to the mobile device. So everything looks good. So at this point, I can actually close the application, that either doing it this way, almost like the window pull-down menu on a regular native Win32, or again, I can go here to the menu, or I can go here to the icon toolbar and select the exit button. And that's the end at this point for testing your mobile application. So select exit, that, and then cancel that, and you can enter the run toolbar icon anytime if you want to test out and do some more sanity testing. So at this point, we've sanity tested the web and the mobile environment. So congratulations, you've now successfully installed the Appeon 2016 web and mobile product development suite. Thanks for watching.